And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Katie Greifeld, taking you through to that closing bell. It's a global simulcast. Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec join us now. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, our partnership with YouTube on a day where the S&P, the Nasdaq, and the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index are on pace for yet another record high. The Russell 2000 only a smidge behind them.
Man, you stole my headline.
I tried.
What was the headline, Carol? Was it the Socks?
No,
Yeah.
that the three were higher.
Okay.
I mean, I'm obsessed with the Socks right now. Up for an 18th straight day. I think we're up about 50%, 50, folks, in that time frame.
Well, look at just how these companies in the Socks are doing. Intel's up more than 23%. ARM Holdings up, Katie, 14, almost 15%. Rambus up more than 14%. AMD up 14%. Qualcomm up more than 11%. It's pretty remarkable.
It is pretty remarkable. We keep remarking on it, and it's certainly benefiting the S&P 500 as well. I will note that this is the fourth straight week of gains for the S&P 500. It has gained every single week in April. Just amazing when you think about what we saw in March, and that was 4 straight weeks of losses.
A market really trying to look past some of the issues going on in the Middle East. And part of that is obviously because what we saw with some of these earnings this week, particularly with Intel, particularly with Texas Instruments. Don't forget next week, or a huge week, 181 S&P companies set to report, and it includes pretty much all of the big names at the top of the weightings, your Apples, your Microsofts, your Amazons, and Alphabets. We get the closing bells here in New York, and it does look like it is going to be a record day for the benchmark index. The S&P 500 right now trading around 7164 and change. It takes a while for these numbers to settle, but no matter how they settle, it's going to be up about 0.8% on the day to yet another record high. The Nasdaq Composite and Nasdaq 100 adding about 1.6% on the composite, 1.9% on the Nasdaq 100. That's good enough for a record high. The Dow Jones Industrial Average sitting this one out in the red on the day by about 0.2%. So are the Dow Transports and the S&P Equal Weight Index. The Russell 2000, though, it is going to finish in the green, up about 12 points or 0.4%, but just about looks like about 6 or 7 points shy of a record high.
All right, back to the S&P 500 we go. Romaine, of course, breaking down all of those major averages. What's interesting is, yep, a record, but folks, only 177 names gaining ground in today's session in the S&P 500. Katie had 324 names losing ground today, 2 unchanged.
Yeah, you saw a similar breadth picture when you take a look at the sector level as well. When you take a look at that circle, 5 sectors finished in the green, 6 in the red. In terms of what did gain today, information technology higher by about 2.5% as a sector. Consumer discretionary also popping about 1.4%. Those are your big winners on the day. In terms of what didn't perform, healthcare down about 1.4%. We know that Eli Lilly has had a rough go of things lately. Industrials also down about 0.9%, Carol.
All right, guys, let's go to some of the individual gainers. No surprise, I'm going to go to the semiconductor area, including, of course, Intel just soaring on its blockbuster report. It is the number one gainer in the S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100, up 23% in today's session. But not alone. You had ARM, AMD, Qualcomm, all of these names higher in today's session, up almost 15% when it comes.
Can I just give you the stat there? Best day since October 29th, 1987. I don't know if you're old enough, Carol, if you remember what happened in October 1987.
Yeah, I wasn't around.
I remember what happened that day.
What happens?
That was Black Monday.
It was Black Monday.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Dow back then.
The Dow, I know.
And look where that got them.
Yeah, look at it now.
All right. So thank you for that
Sorry,
perspective.
Carol wants to continue talking.
Yeah, I would like to. All right. So anyway, stocks up for an 18th straight day. We're up nearly or around 50% in that time frame. Take a look, folks. I know for those who are listening on radio, but it is a straight shot up in the last 18 days. So quite some outperformance. We know about.
We were talking with Steve Soshnick earlier.
Yeah.
18 straight days, longest win streak for that index since it was formed back in 1994. He said that the longest streak prior to this was like 9 days. So basically doubled that daily win streak.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of crazy, and that is pretty significant if you look at that stat. I should also point out AMD was upgraded to buy from neutral. Price target raised to
bring back on this day
375 from 220 at DA Davison. Yeah, I'm just going to ignore him. Anyway, we're going to move on. Let's go on over to Alphabet. One more name for you. Google's going to invest $10 billion in Anthropic with another $30 billion potentially to follow. A $350 billion valuation now. So we just continue. Alphabet shares, you can see, up about about 1.5%. And I just want to mention, don't get mad at me, Finley, but Spirit Aviation was up 46%. Again, it's like $1 something a share about, again, some talk about the government maybe taking a position. And then iHeart holding merger talks with Sirius. iHeart, it was stopped because of volatility in trading, but when it stopped, it was up about 14%. So I'm just going to throw those in.
If the U.S. government buys Spirit, do we get a discount flying it?
That's a great question.
Why would we?
Or do we get to bring a bag without paying?
I thought we were going to talk about the U.S. government buying iHeart, and I thought that was going to be interesting, but who knows?
Hey, we got some decliners, even though today was such a risk-on day. I want to start with the worst performer in the S&P 500. Charter Communications fell by more than 25% today. This after the company reported underwhelming quarterly results. It lost 117,000 residential customers at its Spectrum Internet brand. Once again, the worst performer, losing a quarter of its market cap just in today's trading session.
That's the biggest drop ever.
That's a big one.
Yeah, since 2009.
Wow. Okay, let's move on to HCA Healthcare. This company also fell today by more than 8.7%. Was the decline. It opted against raising its yearly profit and sales guidance despite first quarter profit beating analysts' views. Remember, it's a hospital operator, so first quarter admissions were lower than expected due to a decline in people going to the ER or being admitted with respiratory illness. HCA Holdings falling 8.8%. And finally, Avis Budget Group, ticker CAR.
I love this story.
Down 11% today.
Wow.
It's wiped out nearly all of its 600% surge over the previous month in just 2 days, Romaine.
Yeah.
No clear cause except,
Yeah.
The fact that it went up
I guess.
a gazillion.
Classic short squeeze.
71% drop just in the past 3 sessions.
So,
and there's a great story in the Bloomberg terminal that provides a lot of context for the run-up in the shares.
Well, remember, it went back to this idea of a government shutdown.
Yeah.
And people saying, wait a second, if the government shut down and you can't get through airport security, maybe everybody will drive everywhere instead.
Right.
And that was sort of the beginning of this run.
Huh,
But that's a fundamental reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit more than fundamentals. I encourage everyone to read that story on the Bloomberg terminal. A quick check of yields here. We did see yields drop significantly, and that did help to aid the market rally, down about 6 basis points on the shorter end of the curve. Longer end of the curve, the moves were a little bit less dramatic here, but of course that is the setup. Don't forget, next week, next Wednesday, we do get a Fed decision day. No expectation for rates to move, but of course, a lot of speculation about what the debate will be about where we go next.
All right. Well, I know where
Carol,
we're going
back
to
to
go
you.
right next. Thank you so
Sure
much,
thing.
Romaine. I really appreciate it.
What do you
What's
got?
up with you today, Romaine?
Did you hear this story, Carol, about the pandas that apparently are being flown back?
Did you hear that one?
Oh, there it is.
Could
Look at
someone
that.
kill his mic? So anyway, listen, we're thinking about what's going to happen with the war between the U.S. and Iran this weekend, as it looks like there's some movement forward in terms of peace talks. But I wonder if geopolitically, our next focus is those talks between President Trump and President Xi, which are expected to happen in mid-May. Ahead of that, China is sending 2 pandas to the U.S., adding to perhaps some signs of stabilizing ties between the two nations before
Didn't
that
they just
meeting.
take pandas from us or something?
It's been back and forth.
Panda diplomacy.
So are these the same pandas, or
I think these are new ones.
these are new ones?
This is
because
Zoo Atlanta.
They have some
Yeah.
issues procreating here. So
Zoo
how do they get
Atlanta.
too
Well,
many
you got to
pandas?
keep track of the names. Zoo Atlanta says a male panda named Ping Ping and a female named Fu Shuang are part of an agreement with the China Wildlife Conservation Association. It replaces the original one that expired back in 2024.
The
according to
agreement,
Zoo
not the
Atlanta.
pandas.
Yes, the
Right.
agreement, exactly.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I remember being in D.C. when the pandas came to the National Zoo there. It was like a frenzy. I mean, you would have thought like BTS or somebody was in town.
They're fine.
They're fine.
I'm not huge
They just
on
kind of roll
pandas.
around, they eat their bamboo.
Yeah, they don't really do much.
Ignore their
They're pretty
lovers,
ferocious,
you know,
though. They
whatever.
look awfully
Yeah,
cute, but
Yeah.
They're definitely
fierce.
not procreating. We know
Yeah.
that for sure.
They take a
But
lot of coaxing.
let's talk a little bit
Don't we all?
about another story that we were
Speak for
keeping an
yourself.
eye on. This is called the Tin Can. Apparently, it's
What?
the hottest phone for kids right now. It's a $100 landline. The device.
I'm sorry, what?
It's,
$100 landline?
well, it's a landline-inspired device.
all right.
Hundreds of thousands have been sold, apparently, mostly thanks to word of mouth. And it's to try to get kids off smartphones, is my
Who did
understanding.
Charter Communications come up with this or something? What's happening?
You know, there is a big line. There's a big line for these. I think my brother sent a message to our family chain and was like, his kids have a birthday coming up in a few months, and he's like getting on the wait list for these.
Wow.
Yeah, imagine when they find out what we actually talked on, when we were kids, how
Yeah.
we talked on the phone.
I know. I actually, well, Carol and I, back in the old black and white days, we used to have, real tin cans with the string on
The
them.
dial.
It was
We
quite
actually had a
things,
party
Hard to
line.
hear.
We
So,
had neighbors up on the hill that we shared a line with. It was kind of
Yeah.
weird.
Carol and I used to run around back in the 30s.
Yeah.
We were like little rascals.
We were like
It's like,
this.
and how?
We were like this.